At the beginning of the story, we see a girl named Rachel who goes inside an old house. She hears some noises coming from inside, but she feels that maybe it's just her imagination. Slowly, she walks further in. There's a door in front of her. She tries to open it, but she doesn't see that the shadow of an evil woman is standing right behind her. Rachel gets scared, and then suddenly her eyes open. It was a dream. Rachel's mother, Sarah, asks her, "Are you okay? Did you fall asleep?" But Rachel doesn't tell her mother anything about her dream. Rachel, her mother, Sarah, and her brother, Steve, the three of them are on their way to her grandmother's house. Her grandmother is no longer alive, but before passing away, she left her house in Rachel's name. Finally, they reach her grandmother's house. Rachel's father, Andy, is already there. Steve is very happy to arrive at his grandmother's house. He had never met her before, and neither had Rachel. But now their grandmother has already passed away. Meanwhile, Rachel looks upset, as if something about this doesn't feel right to her. Andy and Sarah try to convince their daughter that it's only a matter of a few days. She just has to stay in this house for a short while, and after that, everything will be fine. Rachel goes to her room, looks at her grandmother's photo, and remembers everything. How her father's business had shut down, how her family had become poor, how they had started struggling for every single penny. Then Rachel found out that her grandmother, who had been very wealthy, had passed away. But after her death, she had left everything: her property, her money, and her house in her granddaughter Rachel's name. But there was one condition. After her death, Rachel would have to live in that house. Whether she stayed there alone or with her family, Rachel had to remain in that house until she turned 21. If Rachel didn't do this, then all the property and money would go to charity. Rachel and her parents couldn't understand why her grandmother had made such a condition, but now they had no other choice. They needed the money. So Rachel has to live in this house. It's only a matter of a few months. Rachel will turn 21 soon, but until then, she has to stay in this house. Her parents explain to her, "Do this, go to town, find a job. There's a cafe there, work part-time. That way your time will pass, and you'll also make new friends." Rachel agrees. Night falls. Everyone goes to sleep. Rachel is also sleeping, but suddenly Rachel feels that there's a shadow in her room. When she opens her eyes, no one is there. She steps outside to close the door, but sees that her room's door isn't closing at all. She feels maybe the door is broken. The next morning, she tells her father everything. Her father says, "All right, no problem, I'll fix the door." But Rachel refuses. She says, "I can take care of myself." Everyone then leaves for their own work. Rachel's father for a job interview, and Rachel for her part-time cafe job. On the way, Rachel meets a girl named Maggie who lives in the neighborhood. Maggie asks Rachel, "Have you come to stay in Ms. Stunn's house?" Rachel replies, "Yes, she was my grandmother." Hearing this, Maggie starts behaving a little strangely. Rachel can sense that Maggie wants to tell her something, but isn't saying it. Rachel ignores it all and asks her instead, "Where is the cafe?" Maggie then says, "Come on, I'll take you there." It seems like a good friendship is starting between Maggie and Rachel. On one hand, Rachel had found a new friend. But on the other hand, her mother noticed that none of the neighbors ever spoke to them. But why? What secret was behind this? Anyway, leave that aside for now. Rachel finally reaches the cafe. The cafe's owner is Kristen. Both she and her staff are very rude and impolite. But in this same cafe, Rachel meets Kevin. The club next to the cafe belongs to him, and Kevin tells Rachel, "If you want to work, come work at my club." While Rachel and Kevin are talking, Kristen suddenly shows up there. Tristan liked Kevin, and she felt bad that Kevin was talking to Rachel. Then Kristen spoke to Rachel and found out that Rachel was living in Mrs. Dunn's house. Mrs. Dunn was Rachel's grandmother. Hearing this, Kristen started laughing, and Kevin also became serious. Rachel couldn't understand what was going on. Maggie took her away from there. Rachel asked Maggie, "What is all this? What is it about my grandmother that I don't know?" Maggie said, "Come, I'll tell you." Maggie took Rachel to her home. Rachel asked her, "Please tell me, what is it about my grandmother that makes the whole town look at me so strangely? You know, I've never met my grandmother until today, but I used to write letters to her every single day, pouring out my heart. She's very close to my heart. Please tell me, what exactly happened with my grandmother?" Then Maggie told Rachel, Maybe you don't know, so I'll tell you. The people of this town believe that your grandmother used to practice black magic, that she was a witch. Hearing this, Rachel felt terrible. She asked Maggie, "How can you people say that?" Then Maggie told her, "Many years ago there were rumors that your grandmother was a witch, that she practiced black magic. But no one ever asked her anything. No one said anything to her. But one day several dead bodies were found in her house. Not just one. Some corpses had ears missing, some were missing eyes, and some had no nose. Then everything seemed clear, that she was practicing black magic. But the police didn't believe any of this, so they sent your grandmother to a mental asylum. And from then until the day she died, she lived there." Hearing Maggie's words, Rachel said, "What are you talking about? I used to write letters to my grandmother at a nursing home. I even have the address." Maggie explained to Rachel, "Go to that address and check for yourself what it really is. A nursing home or a mental asylum?" Rachel was completely confused, not knowing what to do. Terrified, she ran from there and bumped into Maggie's mother, Suzanne. Suzanne asked her daughter, "Who was that girl?" Maggie replied, "She's Mrs. Dunn's granddaughter, Rachel." Hearing this, Suzanne gets very angry. She tells her daughter to stay away from that witch and her family. But Maggie had now started considering Rachel as her friend. While all this was happening on one side, on the other side, Andy and Sarah were alone at home. Suddenly, Andy feels that someone is in the room next to him. He goes towards the room and sees a ball under the blanket. But when he removes the blanket, the ball is gone. He looks under the bed and sees not only the ball, but also his dead grandmother. Terrified, he screams loudly. His mother comes there, but there's nothing at all. She tries to explain to her son that it's all just his misunderstanding. Andy cannot figure out what really happened. Meanwhile, Sarah finally reaches the address where she used to send letters for her grandmother, only to discover that the address belongs to a mental asylum. Sarah cannot understand why her parents did this to her and why her grandmother, even after dying, forced her to stay in that house. Rachel now wants answers to all her questions today itself. Angry, she heads back home. When she arrives, she hears Paul's voice coming from her room. She assumes that her younger brother is playing inside. Furious, she storms into the room, only to find that her brother isn't there. He's actually outside playing. Then how was Paul's voice coming from inside the room? Now Rachel herself begins to feel scared. Later that night, when her mom and dad come together, Rachel asks them why her grandmother was in the mental asylum, why they hid it from her, and whether it was true that her grandmother was caught in this house with a dead body. Steve and Sarah realize they must now tell their daughter everything. Steve tells her that yes, it's true. His mother was indeed caught in this house with a corpse. And the reason they didn't tell her was because she was too young. He adds, "My mother was a very good woman, but gradually her mental condition began to deteriorate, and that's when she started doing all of this. That's why I left my mother and moved to another city. That's why I never let you meet your grandmother till today, because I wanted you to stay away from all this. My mother was sick. That's why she was in the asylum. But what the people in this town are saying, that she was a witch, that's a lie. My mother could never do such a thing." Rachel's mother tries to explain to her that right now the family needs her. "If you leave this house, we won't get this property, and you already know that your father has lost his job and suffered losses in business. We are struggling for every bit of money. If you don't support us, then who will?" Out of helplessness, Rachel is also forced to say yes. Days keep passing by, and every day, whether in her dreams or in reality, Rachel keeps seeing her dead grandmother. She doesn't understand what to do. She was deeply troubled. But then Rachel notices the door of her room. Why doesn't it ever stay shut? She looks carefully and sees a key near the door, perhaps for the basement. Now she wanted to know, what was in the basement? When she goes down there, she sees a lot of toys and also a book. Perhaps this book belonged to her grandmother. She picks it up, but suddenly feels that someone else is in the room. Out of fear, she runs downstairs where she meets Maggie, who had come to visit her. Rachel shows Maggie the book. Seeing it, Maggie gets scared. She says, "Do you know what this is? This book is called the Book of Shadows. Every witch keeps this to perform black magic." Rachel can't believe all this. She tries to explain to Maggie that her grandmother was sick. That's probably why she had these things, but she wasn't a witch. After that, Rachel tells Maggie that she has to go meet Kevin. He's supposed to give her some work. Rachel leaves, but before going, Maggie takes the Book of Shadows from her. Rachel goes to Kevin while Maggie goes back home where her mother is. Her mother asks her, "Where were you?" So Maggie tells her mother the whole truth. Suzanne is very angry that her daughter won't stop living with that witch's family. She tries to explain it to her daughter, and because of this, a fight breaks out between Maggie and Suzanne. On one side, Maggie was probably already caught up in troubles, while on the other side, Rachel reaches Kevin. Slowly, Kevin and Rachel start falling in love with each other, and seeing this makes Kristen feel really bad. But what could she even do? After meeting Kevin, Rachel goes back to her home, and once again, Maggie comes there to meet her. Maggie tells Rachel that she has read the book. She knows what's in it and what Rachel's grandmother was really doing with the corpses. It was a kind of spell, and if a witch performs this spell, then even after dying, her soul stays in this world. Her soul becomes so powerful that it can take possession of anyone's body. But to complete this ritual, you need the hands, eyes, and ears of 3 dead people. And the nose must come from a living person. And this is where your grandmother failed. Before she could kill the living person, the police caught her. Or maybe it's also possible that she actually killed the living person and completed the ritual. And now your grandmother wants to take over your body. That's why she forced you to stay in this house. Rachel laughs, saying nothing like this ever happens. Even Maggie feels like maybe she's talking nonsense. Maggie also adds that, yes, the ritual can't be completed unless the spirit is given something that belongs to the person whose body it wants to possess, like a locket, a bracelet, or anything personal. Now hearing this, Rachel starts feeling scared. She takes off that locket, but no one knows what is going to happen next. The story once again takes us back to Kristen. Kristen had already left, and her staff was closing the cafe. Suddenly, he hears a shadow's voice. When he goes into the kitchen, he sees that Kristen is dead, but her tongue has been cut off by someone. Then that shadow appears there and cuts off the staff member's hand too. Wait a minute, this has only just begun. The story then takes us to Maggie's house. Suzanne feels that there is a shadow inside her house. But before she can understand anything, that shadow kills Suzanne too. And now finally the story takes us back to Rachel. Suddenly, late at night, Sarah feels that someone is breaking into her house. Her husband isn't home today, as he has gone out for work. Sarah goes outside. She hears some noises coming from outside the house. As she tries to listen carefully, a shadow cuts off Sarah's ear and then kills her as well. Rachel was completely unaware of all this. Suddenly, she realizes that someone is entering her house. She goes downstairs and finds Maggie there. Maggie tells Rachel, "Someone killed my mom, please help me." But before Rachel can help Maggie, she gets a call from Kevin. Kevin tells her that Kristen and her staff have been killed. Now Rachel and Maggie begin to feel that maybe this is all the work of her grandmother's spirit. Maybe this is the very day when her grandmother will take possession of Rachel's body. They hear noises coming from the basement, and finally they go there. What they see shocks them. An eye, an ear, a tongue, and a hand, all kept there. They think this is the work of the grandmother's spirit, but finally the mastermind of this whole game comes before them, Steve. And Steve tells his daughter, "I was fed up with this life. My mother left nothing for me, but she left everything for you, and I had to keep flattering you. But when you and Maggie were talking about the Book of Shadows, I overheard everything, and I decided that I would complete the unfinished work my mother had started. I will finish this ritual, and after that, I will take control of your body, and then everything will be mine." Rachel realizes that her father is now capable of doing anything. But wait, there's still one person we're forgetting. Steve feels like a shadow is following him. When he turns around, finally his mother, Rachel's grandmother, appears there, and she kills Steve. She even bites Steve's nose. The ritual has been completed, and now his grandmother can possess anyone's body. But before that, she comes toward Rachel. To save Rachel, Kevin arrives there. Finally, they manage to escape. The next morning, the police arrive, and Rachel decides that she will take her brother far away from here. She leaves, and she even sells her house. But the woman who bought their house, Rachel's grandmother, enters that woman's daughter's body. With this, the story ends. Let me know your thoughts. Also, subscribe to this channel for more horror stories like this.